I'm heartbroken, pain. It's just a lot for me to just know that my sister's not here with me anymore.
I can be full weed.
And when that boy said, but when I cook up.
The young girl you see here is 17-year-old Markayla Marshall, a high school student whose life was just beginning. At first glance, she seemed like any teenager, outspoken, fiery, and unafraid to defend herself. But behind her youthful defiance, a storm of tension was brewing, one that would end in shocking violence. In the early hours of March 31st, 2022, the Columbus Police Department received multiple 911 calls about a shooting at Primus King Park, a public park in South Columbus. What they didn't expect to find was chaos in the lifeless body of a 17-year-old Markayla riddled with bullets. But she wasn't the only victim. Just hours before her death, Markayla had found herself in a bitter feud with her neighbors. Two sisters who accused her of insulting their grandmother. What she didn't know was that her words would ignite a deadly chain of events. The confrontation, which had been scheduled at the park to settle scores, would soon turn fatal. The sisters attacked, and in a horrifying twist, they recorded the violence live for the world to see. What made this scene even more chilling was the irony. Markayla's teenage bravado, her refusal to back down, had drawn her into a confrontation that would ultimately cost her life. Before we get to that tragic moment that changed everything, let me take you back to where this seemingly ordinary neighborhood feud began. Because the most dangerous conflicts are the ones that look trivial from the outside, the ones that start with words, insults, and pride, but spiral into something far darker. 17-year-old Markayla Marshall was born on July 15, 2005 in Columbus, Georgia, the second largest city in the state, right after Atlanta. Columbus, with its charming southern atmosphere and tight community, was Markayla's home. It was where she grew up, surrounded by family, love, and the security of a familiar environment. As the youngest of three sisters, Markayla was a beloved member of her family, a spirited and vivacious young woman who made her presence known in every room she entered. The bond between Markayla and her sisters was undeniable, but they weren't just sisters, they were best friends. Their connection went beyond familial ties. They looked out for each other through thick and thin, and spent countless moments together, creating memories that would last a lifetime. Tragically, the bond between Markayla and her sisters would stay strong, right up until her final moment. Markayla's personality was as vibrant as her dreams. At Kendrick High School, she was an honor roll student, excelling not just in academics but in extracurricular activities. Cheerleading, dance, and choir were her passions, and she threw herself into them wholeheartedly. But it was her love of music that truly set her apart. Markayla didn't just sing for fun, she dreamed of becoming a famous singer one day. Music was her goal, her ambition, and she was determined to make it a reality. Those who knew her could see her drive. When Markayla set her sights on something, she gave it everything she had. Family and friends described her as a spiritual young woman with an unshakable belief in happiness. Her infectious smile, combined with a sunny disposition, could light up any room. Markayla was known for her kindness, her compassionate heart, and her warm nature. She wasn't the type to cause trouble or get involved in drama. Rather, she was the kind of person who brought people together, who lifted those around her with her positive energy.
I can be full weed.
And when that boy said, but when I cook up.
Sadly, many times trouble may just come looking when you're not. Markayla's future seemed full of promise, a future that, tragically, would be cut short far too soon. But like many teenagers, Markayla had her share of relationships. One of them was with a young man, 18-year-old Reginald Fletcher. Though the relationship eventually ended, both moved on. At least that's what it appeared to be. But sometimes, even after a relationship ends, emotions and unresolved tensions can linger. And for Markayla, one moment of thoughtlessness would soon spiral into a tragedy that no one could have anticipated. To fully understand how this tragic turn of events unfolded, it's important to learn about the two sisters who played a crucial role in what happened next: Shauna Turpin and Eureka Turpin. Their involvement in the chain of events that led to Markayla's untimely death is the key to understanding how a once promising young life was extinguished over something that, in hindsight, should never have cost anyone their life.
I'm heartbroken, it's pain. It's just a lot for me to just know that my sister's not here with me anymore.
16-year-old Shauna Turpin was born on October 10, 2006 in Columbus, Georgia, and was the younger of two sisters. Unlike Markayla, Shauna's high school years were filled with issues. She attended Carver High School where she was a sophomore, but Shauna wasn't known for her academic achievements or school spirit. Instead, she struggled with behavioral issues, which led to frequent disciplinary actions and a growing sense of alienation. Her problems extended beyond the classroom and spilled over into her personal life. Shauna's history included a criminal record for theft and battery, a sign that the challenges she faced at school were merely the beginning of deeper issues. Yet what really set things off was her relationship with 18-year-old Reginald Fletcher. Remember Markayla's ex-boyfriend? Yes, that one. After Markayla and Reginald broke up, Shauna began a relationship with him. But for reasons that remain unclear, she developed a strong grudge against Markayla. Was it jealousy, insecurity, or perhaps a combination of both? Whatever the reason, the tension between the two girls was only heightened by a social media comment Shauna believed insulted her grandmother. This emotional trigger, though seemingly small, would set off a deadly chain of events, culminating in violence no one could have predicted. Shauna's older sister, Eureka Turpin, was born on June 12, 2003. A mother to a 2-year-old son, Eureka's life was equally troubled. Having dropped out of high school, she found herself without a stable job or reliable income, struggling to make ends meet. Instead of focusing on her son or trying to build a better future, Eureka became completely submerged in supporting Shauna's choices, regardless of how dangerous or destructive they were. Eureka's support for Shauna's relationship with Reginald went beyond simple encouragement. It became an obsession. She didn't just accept the relationship, she actively defended it, often taking Shauna's side in any confrontation. When the tension between Shauna and Markayla escalated, Eureka didn't just watch from the sidelines. She became an active participant in fueling the conflict. Eureka posted taunting videos on Facebook, mocking Markayla and calling her out for a fight. She was more than an observer. She was a vocal supporter of the violence brewing between the two girls. Whenever Shauna confronted Markayla, Eureka was right there with her. Rather than trying to de-escalate the situation, she added fuel to the fire. She hyped Shauna up, encouraging her to be aggressive and reinforcing the idea that violence was the only way to solve their issues. This toxic relationship between the two sisters would eventually lead to a devastating conclusion. When the moment came, Eureka's words would be the ones that sealed Markayla's fate, pushing the situation past the point of no return. What makes this even more disturbing is that their mother was involved too. Instead of intervening or trying to protect Markayla, she was complicit in the turmoil that led to the tragic end. But how did it all start? The tragic dispute between Markayla and Shauna began when Markayla made a derogatory remark about Siona's grandmother on social media. Although exactly the nature of the insult remains unclear, it was enough to spark intense anger in Siona and her older sister Eureka. Instead of resolving the issue privately or through a more peaceful route, the Turpin sisters chose a far more dangerous path, escalating the situation into something far more sinister. In an effort to humiliate Markela and force her into a confrontation, the sisters took to Facebook. They posted several videos taunting Markela and challenging her to meet them at Primus King Park, a public park in South Columbus. What they didn't expect to find was chaos and the lifeless body of a 17-year-old Markela riddled with bullets. But she wasn't the only victim. Just hours before her death, Markela had found herself in a bitter feud with her neighbors, two sisters who accused her of insulting their grandmother. What she didn't know was that her words would ignite a deadly chain of events. The confrontation, which had been scheduled at the park to settle scores, would soon turn fatal. The sisters attacked, and in a horrifying twist, they recorded the violence live for the world to see. What made this scene even more chilling was the irony. Markela's teenage bravado, her refusal to back down, had drawn her into a confrontation that would ultimately cost her life. On the evening of March 31, 2022, Markela Marshall arrived at Primus King Park with a group of 8 people, including her 2 sisters, 2 friends, and others. Siona, on the other hand, was already there, with her cheerleader, her sister Eureka, waiting for the confrontation to unfold. But what made this meeting even more chilling was the presence of someone else. Their mother, who had come along, and Eureka's 2-year-old son. Yes, a grandmother, fully aware of the volatile situation that was about to erupt, brought her young grandson to a place where violence was not only expected, but planned. This fact speaks volumes about how normalized violence had become in this family. What should have been a peaceful resolution was instead a calculated setup for destruction. These weren't just idle threats. The Turpin sisters, with their mother and child in tow, were there to make good on the violent promises they had made on social media. They had planned this encounter carefully, knowing that it would most likely escalate into bloodshed. They didn't just talk about it. They showed up prepared for the inevitable. When Markela arrived and saw the Turpin sisters, she immediately attempted to de-escalate the situation. In a desperate attempt to protect herself and her group, she sprayed them with pepper spray. But it wasn't enough. In a moment of fury, Siana pulled out a 9mm pistol. A 16-year-old girl had brought a loaded gun to a park, and she was about to use it. She began shooting. The violence was swift and brutal. Shauna fired multiple rounds, hitting Markela 3 times in the chest and abdomen. As Markela collapsed to the ground, she tried to crawl away, but the injuries were too severe. In the chaos, Markela's sister rushed to her side, calling 911, while others in their group were also injured. 2 of the women with Markela were shot in the legs, but managed to escape the scene and find safety. Meanwhile, Eureka's voice could be heard on a video recording, urging her sister on, shouting, "Shoot, Susie, shoot twice," just moments before the gunfire erupted. Once Siana had emptied the magazine of her pistol, the sisters, along with their mother and young nephew, fled the scene. They left behind a scene of utter devastation. Markela, gravely wounded, lying on the ground in a pool of her own blood. The police arrived shortly after receiving multiple calls about the shooting, and they found Markela in critical condition. Despite efforts to save her, including CPR performed at the scene, Markela was rushed to Piedmont Columbus Regional Hospital. But tragically, she would not survive. Markela passed away at 7:49 p.m., just 90 minutes after the senseless violence unfolded before her family and friends. This was no spontaneous act of rage. It was a planned attack, and it cost Markela her life.
I can be full weed.
And when that boy said, Lord, when I cook up.
What started as a public challenge over social media ended in a deadly confrontation. A confrontation that marked the end of a young life full of promise and dreams. With the suspects fleeing the scene, the investigation quickly turned to finding the Turpin sisters. As police gathered evidence, they discovered multiple shell casings and a pepper spray canister at the scene. They also reviewed witness statements and video footage captured by bystanders that clearly identified Sienna as the shooter and Eureka as her accomplice. The authorities launched a manhunt for the two sisters. Sienna Turpin was arrested on April 4, 2022, after she voluntarily surrendered to the Columbus Police Department. She admitted to shooting Markhyla and two others at the park. She was charged with 1 count of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault. She was denied bond and remained in jail awaiting her trial.
You would acknowledge that you shot Zakiya Thomas, her sister?
Correct.
So would you agree that you shot 11 times?
Well, if it's on video, yes, sir.
You are not aware of anybody else shooting out there?
I don't know.
Markhyla didn't have a gun, right?
I don't know what she had. I didn't even know she had the pepper spray.
You didn't know before you started shooting, or you didn't know until after you started shooting?
I didn't know before. That's what.
Okay.
But Eureka Turpin, on the other hand, went on the run. For nearly 2 months, she evaded capture until June 6, 2022, when she would be arrested during a routine traffic stop on Interstate 185. She was charged with the same offenses and, like her sister, was denied bond, but many more other offenses. Since Eureka had been on the run knowing she'd been wanted for murder, she was charged with many other crimes: failure to obey a stop sign, theft by receiving stolen property, cutting through private property, willful obstruction of law enforcement, failure to obey signs or control devices, no proof of insurance, fleeing or attempting to elude a police officer, and giving a false name, address, or birth date. Just like her sister, Shauna, she too was denied bail. The Turpin sisters' trial began in 2023, and what followed was a tense courtroom battle. A battle that would reveal their intentions and whether or not they acted in self-defense. The trial of the Turpin sisters began on February 1, 2023, in the Muskogee County Superior Court. The prosecution argued that the sisters had acted with malice and premeditation when they shot Markhyla over a petty dispute. They presented evidence including cell phone videos, Facebook videos, and testimonies from witnesses to prove that the shooting was an intentional act of violence. The defense, on the other hand, argued that Sienna shot Markhyla in self-defense after being pepper sprayed. They claimed she acted out of fear and panic, not with the intent to kill. However, before the trial could reach the jury, both sisters agreed to a plea deal.
My mother tried to de-escalate the situation. She was like, y'all are family. Y'all don't have no business out here fighting. Marissa Upshaw, she stated, child boo. Then I noticed, I seen Ivy Bourne walk up to Markhyla and she started whispering in her ear, and that's when Markhyla came forth with the pepper spray.
And what did you think after your pepper spray? Did you have any thoughts?
I was panicking. I was scared. I was panicking. It was a lot of them. I didn't know what they was fit to do to me and my family.
How did the pepper spray feel? How did you feel about it?
It was burning. I feel like I was going to have an asthma attack.
Did you have any medical issues like asthma that
Yes, ma'am.
you were concerned about? And why did you pull out your gun?
I was trying to defend myself, my family. She was headed towards my nephew with the pepper spray that could have caused serious body harm to him. I was scared. I was feared.
And why did you fire your gun?
I was scared.
And did you realize that you had hit the girls who were pursuing you, Markayla, Kayla, and I believe another girl? Did you realize that you had hit them with gunfire?
No, ma'am. I couldn't see. I didn't even know that they was down or anything.
So would you agree that you shot 11 times?
Well, if it's on the video, yes, sir.
You're not aware of anybody else shooting out there?
I don't know.
Markayla didn't have a gun, right?
I don't know what she had. I didn't even know she had the pepper spray.
You didn't know before you started shooting, or you didn't know until after you started shooting?
I didn't know before. That's what.
Okay. Do you know how many times you shot Markayla?
No, sir. I didn't even know that she was down.
Okay. And you testified earlier that you couldn't see, correct?
Correct.
And do you think you would have been able to shoot her as she was laying on the ground?
I don't know, sir. I was scared. I couldn't see anything. I was just trying to get the crowd back. That's it.
Okay. Well, in the video, would you agree that you can see that she falls to the ground after the first shot?
I see that in the video, but when it happened, I didn't know, sir.
Okay. You would acknowledge that you shot Zakiah Thomas, her sister.
I didn't know that either, sir.
How about Kayla Benjamin?
Didn't know that either, sir, till I read my emotion discovery.
Okay. And you put around through the windshield of the car where this video was being made from.
I was not aware of any of that, sir.
They both pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter, a charge less severe than murder. Voluntary manslaughter is defined as causing the death of another person in the heat of sudden, intense passion, often triggered by a provocation. Additionally, they were each found guilty of 2 counts of aggravated assault for shooting 2 other women during the incident. Judge Bobby Peters then delivered their sentences. The judge sentenced Shauna to 30 years in prison, with 25 years to serve and 5 years on probation. Eureka was sentenced to 20 years in prison, with 15 years to serve and 5 years on probation. Both sisters were denied the Georgia First Offender Act, a law that typically allows offenders to have their records expunged after completing their sentences. As a result, their convictions will remain on their records permanently. But let me ask you, the viewers, should the Turpin sisters have received harsher sentences? While the Turpin sisters' plea deal provided some closure from Markayla's family, it did little to ease the grief they felt from losing their loved one. The family expressed their dissatisfaction with the plea deal, feeling that justice had not been fully served. Markayla's death sparked conversations about teen violence, gun access, and the consequences of escalating conflicts with violence. On Sunday, April 3, 2022, just days after the tragic shooting, family and friends gathered at Primus King Park, the very place where Markayla's life was so senselessly taken.
I'm heartbroken, it's pain. It's just a lot for me to just know that my sister's not here with me anymore.
In the midst of their heartbreak, they held a candlelight vigil in her honor. Dozens of people, from family members to childhood friends, showed up to share in their grief, offering love and support during this unbearable time. As they released balloons into the sky, each one floated higher, carrying with it the memories of a young woman whose life was cut short. The crowd watched silently, tears streaming down their faces as the balloons drifted away, symbolizing their loss and the life they would never get to see fully unfold.
A balloon release and candlelight vigil for 17-year-old Markayla Marshall.
Markyla's older sister, Tiona Marshall, who had been Markyla's constant protector, spoke through her tears, sharing the depths of her heartbreak and how the family was struggling to come to terms with the tragedy. Her words echoed the collective pain of those who had known Markyla, someone whose kindness, light, and potential were stolen in an instant. The church, filled with the echoes of grief and love, stood as a solemn reminder of the life Markyla could have had, and the violence that robbed her of that chance. Markyla Marshall's life was cut short by a senseless act of violence over a petty argument. She was a bright, promising young woman who dreamed of a future in music and was just beginning to find her place in the world. Her family and friends remember her as a loving daughter, sister, and friend whose life was taken far too soon. Markyla's story serves as a reminder of the dangers of escalating conflicts with violence and the profound impact that these decisions can have on families and communities. May her memory be a blessing and a reminder of the importance of resolving conflicts peacefully. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.
I can be full weed.
And when that was it, but when I cook up.